I am extremely excited to be talking with you today, Ali, about yourself, about your journey with epilepsy. So why don't you start this interview? Why don't you tell us about your journey with epilepsy and with seizures?
Okay. Well, first, I'm very excited to be doing this and to be sharing my story, because usually I'm the one who's interviewing people, and now I get to be interviewed. So it's an honor and it's really fun. My journey with epilepsy is quite a story, if you may say so. For a nutshell, I was born with a mild stroke. And so that occurred in utero. Most likely, my mom had a 26-hour labor, which obviously was very long. I was born, I had perfect agar scores and everything, but when I was 8 months old, the nanny that was with my mom and my dad, and then was taking care of me, noticed that my right hand was always clenched, and she also had a degree in nursing. So she had said to my parents that I should go get, or they should take me to get evaluated. So went to the neurologist, got an MRI, which confirmed that in medical terms, I had suffered a left hemisphere brain infarction, which is a stroke. It occurred on the left side of my brain. And so as a result, it was going to cause, and it had caused weak and fine and gross motor skills on the right side of my body. So right-sided weakness. And then I had other complications, down the line, which would include speech delays, academic challenges, again, like physical challenges. And that's the reason why my right hand was clenched. But through all of this, when they diagnosed me with brain infarction or a stroke, the neurologist did tell my parents that I would be prone to seizures. Whether I had a seizure or seizures, it was unknown, but I could be prone to them. So my parents were very well aware of that. Of course, I went my first 18 years of life without any seizures. I did have one fainting spell, but that was not a seizure at all. And I, had my first seizure when I was 18 years, which was my freshman year of college.
Wow.
And
Well, before we continue on, for the viewers out there who don't know, what exactly is epilepsy?
Okay, so epilepsy is a neurological condition or a brain disorder that causes seizures. A seizure is an abundance of electrical activity, abnormal electric activity, you may say, in the brain that causes one person to have symptoms such as losing consciousness, jerky body movements, abnormal eye movements, and the list kind of goes on. You can also be in and out of consciousness, but not really fully go into a state of full consciousness. So it kind of depends. But the best way to describe seizures is you can consider it an electric storm in the brain. And so what is really interesting and a good way to explain this is think of it as like a heart. So I think it's like a heart in your on your brain, and it's beating. And when it beats like uncontrollably, that's when the seizure occurs, because it's just so much activity in the brain, it can't control itself, and so causes abnormal behavior and movements to the body and for the person.
That's a great image, especially for people who are just, learning about what this is. Mm-hmm. And so you said you were 18 years old when you had your first seizure?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was my freshman year of college. It was during orientation. So I went to Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts for a year and a half, and my mom dropped me off. Everything was going great. I said goodbye to my mom, and then was going to the dining hall with my new friends. I got a slice of pizza for dinner. We were all sitting down in the dining hall, chatting away, and about 2 minutes into eating, I choked on a piece of pizza, and all of a sudden my right arm lost sensation, and became numb. I screamed for help. I lost consciousness, and then I fell out of my chair, and paramedics came, and I was put on a stretcher. They also put a neck brace around me, around my neck, because falling out of the chair, they were concerned that I possibly could have hurt my neck. So while I was still unconscious, I remember trying to tear off the neck brace. And so I finally came to when I was put in the ambulance and I was on my way to the hospital. But I was out for, I want to say between 1 and 3-4 minutes, in and out. I mean, because I was vaguely aware, but I was still not with it.
Okay. Wow. Very scary.
So that was my first seizure. Yes.
And how many seizures have you had total?
So I've had 3 seizures. So that was the first seizure. That's when I first started seeing, after that, Dr. Davinski of New York Langone Medical Center, which we'll talk about. But that's when I first started seeing him. And then I was on and off different medications, because I'm very susceptible to medications, and sensitive, I should say. Then I had. Let me go back. So then I had 2 other seizures, to answer your question.
Okay, so total 3 seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And talk to me about treatment for this. What is are you put on a medication? Is there a kind of lifestyle you're supposed to live to prevent yourself from having seizures?
Right. So it all varies depending upon the person, what their epilepsy is like. So my epilepsy is very mild. Obviously, I've been seizure free for 10 years, but there's all different levels. There can be really severe cases where people are having seizures every single day, and then there can be people like me who have seizures or have had a seizure once every year and a half. So medication was the answer to my treatment. Like I said, I'm very sensitive to meds, and so it was kind of a tricky balance and I should say thing to figure out in terms of what medication would help me and would not cause a lot of side effects. So I've been on one medication for it's been the last 10 years that ultimately has been the one and only big treatment. But in addition to medication, I've had to adjust my lifestyle. Not big time, but I have to make sure that I get enough sleep. So that's 8 or 9 hours per night. I eat 3 full meals a day. And then also, I also limit myself on activities that involve flashing lights, or even sort of strobe lights as well. So whether that be going to the theater where there's flashing lights for a certain scene, or to an event where there's a strobe light, I try to limit myself. And so if I am in an environment like that, I either leave or I get away as far as I can from the lights, but that's on a very rare basis. And then
I'm curious, have you been in a position where you were scared you were going to have a seizure, like at the theater or at a parade, for instance?
Yeah, I definitely have been in, I'll say when I was younger in a nightclub, and there was a strobe light, going around, and I did worry about having a seizure. And at that point, actually, I could not leave. So yeah, it was tough. But then also I did unfortunately go into I went to see a play and there were lights. And again, I was actually very concerned but what was I supposed to do? Like make a big scene out of it? Like, if it was bound to happen, it was going to happen. But,
Yeah,
fortunately
you have to
it,
take
it didn't. And this was like
stock.
pre, like even being really on my meds full time.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're put on medication. You have to change or really make sure parts of your life, including sleep and your
Mhm.
diet, are up to par with, preventing seizures. Was
Mhm.
this a routine that a doctor specifically helped you implement?
Um, so it wasn't something that a doctor said, you had to do. But what is important for those that have epilepsy or seizures is that they get a good amount of sleep. Obviously they're eating like anybody. If nobody ate, like you would get lightheaded. Or obviously it varies from person to person. But so that's like an extra layer. And then strobe lights again is what I am aware of, what my doctors have told me. But yes, it was mentioned because I know about all these things from Dr. Davinski. However, there wasn't anything that he said that basically was like, you have to follow this, you have to follow that, you have to follow this in terms of your lifestyle. It was, I kind of just knew what I needed to do.
Great. And do people with epilepsy have to see a doctor like once a year for a checkup? Or what is your relationship and your kind of routine with seeing doctors involving epilepsy?
Okay, so again, it varies on the person. If somebody has seizures that are not controlled by medication or some type of surgery and so forth, they probably would need to see their doctor much more. In the beginning, when I started seeing Dr. Davinski, it was kind of every few months, and kind of as much as I needed in order to find the right treatment and kind of be on my way. But since I've been seizure free, my regimen is I see Dr. Davinski every 6 months. With which is basically a check-in. Often we don't even talk about seizures; we talk about other things related to my health, but just which I'll get into in terms of my relationship with him. And then I also do a routine EEG alongside my visits, which
What's
is
the EEG?
so an EEG is when they put electrodes on different parts of your brain to measure or to see the electrical activity in one's brain, and it shows like the electrical activity changes when somebody has a seizure. So they're monitoring if you have a seizure, what's going on in your brain. Clearly, I'm not having seizures when this happens. But it shows for me also my abnormal brain waves because of my brain injury or the stroke that happened in utero. But I still get it checked because it's important.
Yes, wonderful. It seems like you and Dr. Davinsky have a really, long-term healthy working relationship together. Can you
Yes.
speak a little more to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dr. Davinski, again, yeah, he's affiliated with NYU Langone Medical Center, and he runs the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center. He also is the founder of FACES, which is Finding a Cure for Epilepsy and Seizures, which is an organization that I will get into. I started seeing Dr. Davinski when I first started having seizures in 2008. And it was him who found the right treatment and medication to be seizure free. I applaud him left and right for that. But now because my seizures are under control, and I have been seizure free. He, aside from talking about my epilepsy and seizures and prevention and management, he's also become a source of support, and somebody that I can turn to for advice on certain things, whether it be about employment, whether it be about the COVID vaccine, for instance, whether it just be about, contraception, and just a variety of different things. He'll gladly write me a letter if I need something from him. And he's always there in a heartbeat. I can call him up or email him and he'll get back immediately. So he's always been there for me and still is. And I could go on and on about him, but yeah, he's a wonderful physician.
I feel like everyone needs a Dr. Davinski in their life.
Yeah, they need a Dr. Davinski for sure.
Yes. Well, can you tell me a little more about FACES and remind me again what that exactly stands for? You did say.
Okay, so FACES is Finding a Cure for Epilepsy and Seizures. It was started by Dr. Davinski, and its mission is to improve the quality of life for those affected with epilepsy and seizures. And then more specifically, the funding that they get supports research, supports new therapies and treatments, and then it helps foster a supportive community for caregivers, individuals, families. And through the organization, they offer different programs, whether it be scholarships, whether for college, whether it be camp programs. There's game day, where once a year they go to Chelsea Piers and kids can have fun, and which FACES funds. So again, there's like a variety of different programs, different like support groups, and then there's the general events to support FACES. But that's really what FACES is about too, and it's really to ultimately find a cure. Which still hasn't been done, but there's so much different like advancements going on.
Yeah. So from when you first had your first seizure to now, have you seen a lot of advancements, or do you think we're getting closer to finding a cure for epilepsy?
So I will say I've seen advancements. I don't want to say I've seen so many advancements where I think we're at a cure. But the biggest advancement that I've seen has been the founding of CBD oil, which is used for many other things aside from epilepsy, but it does help with epilepsy and reducing seizures. And I think that's been a very big component and research to epilepsy. Whether it comes to
okay.
When it comes to other different types of like treatments and advancements, there's a lot of research being done that's making its way to like future advancements, finding a cure, new therapies, and so forth. But it's not out there yet to the public, so to speak.
Yes.
So I don't know the ins and the outs. I just see it from the front lines and what I hear about.
I also just want to take a moment to congratulate yourself on 10 years seizure free. That's
Thank you.
Incredible. And what does it mean to you being seizure free? And I know that this is your first time being open with the viewers here at DNA about your epilepsy and your experience with seizures. Why now?
Okay, well, so to start off with being seizure free for 10 years, it's really a huge accomplishment, which I applaud myself for, in addition to Dr. Davinski, who made this happen. But it's a big accomplishment. And it really just kind of shows that somebody like me who does have mild epilepsy can live a great quality of life and kind of have their epilepsy be quote unquote secondary to their life. Obviously, that's not everyone. There are varying like levels of epilepsy. And I should disclose that the way my epilepsy is not how epilepsy is for other people. And so, what happens to me is not going to be the same for somebody who's having seizures, 20 times a day is uncontrolled. And so, but in my case, it just kind of shows that people with epilepsy can live a quality of life, and a kind of a proving like example of that. When it comes to disclosing, yes, my epilepsy and even my brain injury or stroke, I am an open book. Generally speaking, anyone ask me anything, I will be totally honored to talk about my issues, conditions, and so forth. However, for Different Enable and for social media, even though my friends and family and people that I meet, I tell them, so they all know, I've been closed off from publicizing it because the words stroke and epilepsy and seizure, when somebody hears those words, they're very strong and powerful. And a lot of people can get the wrong meaning from them because people can be severe. Some people can have severe strokes. They're in wheelchairs. They're not verbal. They're, you know, they're in a vegetative state, or they have other like severe challenges, whether it be social awkwardness, you know, cognitive issues. And so, you know, there's that extreme. People can be having seizures all day long, be uncontrolled, you know, and it basically dictates their life. And so, you know, I haven't wanted people that don't know me, or, you know, they're looking at me for a job, whether it be, you know, dating somebody or whatever the case may be. I haven't wanted them to get the severe like impression of really who I am, because I live independently. I have a foundation, I have a dog, like I have tons of friends, and the list goes on. So I didn't want them to really be scared off by those terms. But, you know, as, you know, I think anyone would say, you know, at this point, I really don't give two fracks about what other people think in a lot of different ways. Like I have a great life, and like I'm not worried about that. And it's really a personal choice if they think otherwise of me. And you know, what all these terms mean and what I have. But at the end of the day, like those that know me and want to get to know me will know that this is like kind of quote unquote in the past. These terms are a part of me, but they don't control my life. And I'm very independent and have managed to live regardless of these circumstances.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because you can, you know, these things can just be a part of you, and you can be extremely successful. You can date, have a social life, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the main character of your, you know, experience. And it's so refreshing, and to hear you talk so openly about it, and about what you've been through. I do want to talk about, though, a stigma, because there is a stigma associated with any difference. Have you noticed the stigma against epilepsy and seizures change over time from when you first experienced yours, or is it relatively the same?
You know, that's a really interesting question. I mean, from the time that I was diagnosed to now, which has been 3+ years, because it's known that after having 2 seizures, you technically have epilepsy, the disorder. But it was really after my 3rd seizure that, you know, it was confirmed I needed to be on medication long term. And so in a lot of ways, I consider that being the emphasis of when I was diagnosed, which was 10 years ago. But you know, from the time 10 years ago to now, there's been advancements and there's been positive changes, such as with CBD oil and other different advancements. So that's really brought a positive light to those that have epilepsy. And so, you know, people have been able to have a better quality of life. So there's like kind of a positive message going around that like epilepsy can be quote unquote it's treatable. You know, obviously it depends, but Overall, though, the stigma, like in some ways, still stays the same. I mean, again, like I was talking about mine, like for instance, but like the words epilepsy and seizures for a lot of people are very scary, and they think that somebody is incapacitated, is having seizures every single day, 20, 30 times a day. And that is unfortunately true for some people with the condition, but that's not true for everyone. And I think, yeah, there is more knowledge now. So the stigma is being reduced and there's positive change, but it's not there yet at all. And I don't know if it ever will be. I mean, but we can only hope for the best.
Well, I think
but it's getting better to answer your point.
I do think that the more people like you who speak openly about it and can inform others is really going to help just release any stigma. And also Instagram, I feel like there's right now a big wave of knowledge coming through Instagram when you go to the credible sources about mental health, about disabilities, and I really do think people speaking their truth is what's hopefully over time going to dissolve that stigma. I want to ask you, is there something that you know now about epilepsy and seizures that you wish you knew when you were first diagnosed?
It's a really good question. So, yeah, there's a ton of different things that I wish I knew. But I think the main thing for my case, and it's my case, it's not for other cases who may have that are more severe. But I do wish that I had known that I would be able to still live a great quality of life, and that my epilepsy would be quote unquote secondary to my life. Versus it being controlling to, in the way I carry on my life and what I'm doing in my life and so forth. Because 10 years ago, even really, I guess it was 13 years ago when my first seizure happened, or whatever it may be. I would have thought it was a joke that people would say, oh yeah, you'll be like seizure free and you're going to live a quality of life. Because when you have a seizure, or great quality of life, but when you have a seizure for the first time, you think you're going to have them like all the time. It's not something, and it can like impact somebody's life if it is at a certain level. But yeah, I do wish that I had known that it wasn't going to impact my life, my case, fortunately, and that I would be seizure free.
One final question for you. It's kind of on the same lines of this. What is a piece of advice you would have given yourself, or you would give to someone who was just diagnosed with epilepsy?
Okay, so I think overall, I think as hard as it is, you need to be kind to yourself. Don't like hit yourself like over your head because you've had a seizure and kind of just catastrophize the situation. I am a constant source of support for people who've just had seizures, and friends will come up to me and say, oh, X person's had a seizure. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. Like, I don't know what to tell them. And my advice always is to not freak out. If you have one seizure, it's not considered epilepsy, first of all, yet, but it's not something that you need to run with. There's a lot of different reasons why seizures happen, and some people have just had one seizure in their life as a result of a surgery, it's a result of a side effect of a medication, and so forth. So in those cases, I say don't panic, but do take the necessary precautions to go visit your doctors and follow their guidelines and so forth. But people who are officially confirmed with epilepsy and are having or have seizures regularly, really, I would say not to worry. As hard as that may be, there's tons of professionals, Dr. Davinski being, one of the best, or at least that's what I consider him to be, one of the best, and FACES being an organization. But in addition to FACES and Dr. Davinski, there's so many other professionals that are very qualified in treating epilepsy, and doing brain surgery and doing a variety of other things. So I would say go out and get the help that you need. And, just really not catastrophize the whole like situation. And, depending upon obviously the levels and so forth and, the situation, I mean, things will be okay in the end. I mean, it is quote unquote a treatable condition, even though it can lead to debilitating situations in terms of, you know, seizures can't be fully controlled. They can't find, or they can't, go to college or school. They can't, find employment. Also there's secondary conditions. But I would really say just make sure you get the help, and that, you're also not alone. uh,
Beautiful. Well, thank you so, so much for, opening up your life for everyone here at DNA. You're such a source of inspiration, and I know that all of our viewers are going to be super excited to learn a little more about you and your experience. So thank you for taking the time, and
Absolutely, my
I'm
pleasure.
sure we will chat sometime soon.
Yes, for sure. Thanks, Cameron. Bye.